Wonderful. Welcome everybody to another ICF Toronto monthly member meeting. My name is Shahab Nari, and I'm honored and privileged to be your host today. So on behalf of all the members of the board of ICF Toronto, I'd like to welcome you to this meeting. We have an amazing agenda lined up for you, especially the part where Giovanni Marsico will share with us his amazing experience of building a community, a thriving community of change makers in Toronto and honestly across the globe. And he knows a thing or two about creating communities. So I'm so looking forward to that part, presentation by Giovanni. But before that, let me tell you what today's agenda is. So after the opening remarks and a couple of announcements, we will have Giovanni Marsico present to us on the topic of community building for coaches. It will be like a 1 hour presentation with lots of interaction and lots of Q&A and great things that Giovanni has planned for you. And then the last 15-20 minutes, we will dedicate it to networking. It's more of a get to know fellow members of ICF Toronto kind of thing. So it's a voluntary action. So the last 15 and 20 minutes, I'll ask you guys to volunteer to start your video, start your audio, and tell us who you are, what you do, why you're awesome, who you serve. Take 1 minute to introduce yourself. So if you want to be that volunteer, make sure you're ready. You're in a good place with good lighting, with good audio. If you want to get changed, go do that right now. And absolutely take the opportunity to introduce yourself to the other members. Okay. And finally, we will have the closing remarks at the end. We will hopefully finish at 8 p.m. Anne Rose says, I just have to say you're an amazing host. Oh, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Amazing stuff. Okay, so let me make the announcements first. First of all, on behalf of the board of directors of ICF Toronto, I'd like to say that Black Lives Matter. We stand by this movement. And we want all of you guys to know that we value diversity and inclusion. I myself am a breathing example of diversity and inclusion in our chapter. As an immigrant with a bit of an accent, I'm your host of the monthly member meetings. And this is a true expression of diversity and inclusion in our chapter. But a few days ago, Barb Rosenschreiber, our leader, the president of ICF Toronto, issued a statement on behalf of all the board members about the Black Lives Matter movement and in general about diversity and inclusion. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read a portion of that statement that we have posted on our website. So Barb says, people all over the world and coaches in our own Toronto community are taking a stand to make their voices heard following the senseless deaths that have taken place over the past few weeks because of racial discrimination and injustice. We want you to know and feel that you are a part of a community that is anti-racist, that welcomes everyone, listens and takes an inclusive approach to our programming and services. We welcome your ideas about what we need to do to be more inclusive of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. Please reach out to me at barb@icftoronto.com to share your views and help us see where we may have unconscious biases that need to be addressed. Let's make sure we are modeling within our chapter what we want to see in the world. I love that punchline. Be the change you want to see in the world, as Gandhi says. So if you're a person of color, if you're a person, an individual belonging to a minority group, or if you want to, represent more diversity and inclusion in our chapter, please do reach out to us, to me, to Barb, to other board members, and we welcome that. We do welcome that. So that's one announcement. We just want to make it crystal clear that Black lives matter and we value diversity and inclusion. The other thing that is so aligned with my own intentions of joining the board of ICF Toronto is the Member Wisdom Series. As I've shared with you, fellow members, in the past, when I joined the board of ICF Toronto, I had two personal initiatives that I wanted to follow, honestly. Number one was to build an even stronger and more thriving community of certified coaches in Toronto, a community where everybody knows, likes, and trusts the other fellow members. And if we do know, like, and trust the other fellow members, then we can support each other personally and professionally. So number one, for me, honestly, is to move that cause forward, building a stronger community. And that's only possible through putting in the time and effort and energy to get to know each other better. And number two is having more business speakers. Yes, the core competency speakers are awesome. We already have them in our programming, but we need more business speakers so that they can teach us how we can build a more successful business as coaches, a more successful coaching practice. Why? Because coaching changes lives. And if we have a more successful business, then we can make more impact. We can help more people. We can spread our message. And eventually everybody will benefit from that. So those are my two initiatives. And based on those two initiatives, last month I announced to you guys our Member Wisdom Series initiative, which is all about sharing your expertise with the other members. On the board of ICF, we want you to be seen and heard. Really, we mean that. We want you to get involved, no matter who you are, what kind of experience you have, what your niche is, how many years in this industry you've been. It doesn't matter. We want you to get involved. So especially if you have a certain experience in an area of expertise, if you've been around for quite a while, a PCC, an MCC, even a coach without credentials who have been doing this for quite a long time, we want to encourage you to create a video, 5 minutes or less, in your area of expertise that can benefit other members. Not just a random video, but a video that can benefit other members. It could be about building your business as a coach. It could be about core competencies. It could be about anything, a tool that may benefit the other members. Create a video, 5 minutes or less, send it to me. I will personally make sure that I watch your video, and I will pick a few of your videos, and I will make sure we distribute them via our newsletter so that everybody can get to know you. And if we get to know you, we will eventually support you more personally and professionally. And this way we can build a more thriving chapter. So if you like these initiatives, if you think these are a good idea, just head over to the chat box, show me some appreciation, show me some energy, and let's get moving. Awesome. This is wonderful. So I see Barb has raised her hand. I'm heading over to you, Barb. Okay, where are you, Barb? No. Okay. So if there's anything you want to share, Barb, please raise your hand once again. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. This is wonderful. Amazing. Thanks for the love in the chat box. And honestly, this is truly how we feel about our chapter. All of the board members, we are on the same page. We want you to get more involved. We want you to get heard and seen. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce to you our amazing, wonderful speaker today, Giovanni Marsico. Okay, let me stop share. Giovanni, where are you, my friend? Please raise your hand so that I can run to you with the mic. Okay, Giovanni's here. Okay, wonderful. So, Giovanni, hi, please unmute yourself. Hello, Giovanni, how are you?
I am wonderful, thank you, Shahab.
Amazing, thanks for taking the time today. Guys, it was like 2-3 months ago, I asked Giovanni to speak to our membership, and he graciously accepted. I'm gonna read his bio. for those of you who do not know him really well, so that you know who the amazing speaker for today's meeting is. So Giovanni, give me 1 minute. I'm going to read your bio and I'll hand it over to you for the rest of your presentation.
Thank you.
Just a prelude. A lot of us have been going to meetups and networking events and never found one real community. That's so true. I agree. It turns out bringing people together into a room or event space isn't enough. At most events, at best, you'll exchange transactional value, or you can add some social media connections. However, building a community of like-minded people is completely different. That's why we have brought to you Giovanni Marsico, the founder of Archangel Summit. Giovanni will provide a step-by-step process for building a tribe of raving fans and a fulfilling business that helps make their dreams come true. So who is Giovanni Marsico? He's the founder of Archangel, an organization that helps changemakers scale through immersive experiences, tactical coaching, curated community. Thank you for being with us on the call today, Giovanni. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the invitation. I'm excited to speak to all of you. And whenever I do anything like this, I'm not a fan of monologuing. I prefer dialogue. So please feel free to interrupt. I know that we can communicate through the chat, and I will be asking a bunch of questions along the way. How I want to share choreography for this evening is to start with a story and sharing my story and the evolution of where I've been and what I've created, and then share the framework for how I've built community and a lot of the wisdom accumulated along the way that can apply for all of you in terms of not only building a community, but also to allow for more self-expression, allow for more of you to come out in the work that you do so that you're attracting people who are aligned with you, which is so important, because I feel like for a lot of coaches, a lot of entrepreneurs, we think we have to act a certain way, and we think we have to wear a mask, and we think we have to do what everyone else is doing, and yet it dims our lights, and it doesn't allow us to speak up, to stand up, and to stand out. And what I found in my own experience is that the more I am me, the more I am figuratively naked, where people know and recognize my voice and what I stand for, I'm actually attracting amazing humans into our community. And I want to share how that all works. So thank you again, Shahab. Thank you for all of you. If you have any questions for me, please type them in the chat, and we'll have a lot of time for Q&A as well. So I'm just going to share. And I will have my chat open, so happy to hear from you. Okay, so the theme is community building, and my name is Giovanni. Thank you for the introduction. I like to say that I help changemakers scale, and changemaker is any leader, entrepreneur, coach, anyone who is in service of others, where you want to help other people in some way. And we do that through immersive experiences like our big Archangel Summit experience. I am also a coach, and through curated community. So I'll start with my first quick question. If you could just type in the chat, have you ever attended any of our events in the past? I already see that John is saying yes, so thank you, John. Amazing. And if it's no, it's totally cool. I am excited to meet all of you. I feel like I should be. That's okay. So what I've created is a multi-million-dollar business, but that's not the important thing, because my philosophy is that money isn't the goal. Money is the tool that can fuel our missions and that can help us create change. And I've done it by sharing what I'm a superhero nerd, as you can tell by the stuff behind me, and I love comic books. And that's, again, talking about me and what fulfills me. And I'm serving people that I love to work with, people that light my batteries, people that charge me up, while at the same time creating massive impact. And I believe each one of you can do the same thing. And I believe that we can all be superheroes, and I put that in quotes. So my intention for all of us today is to share my story, share my formula that can help you make whatever your dream is, especially the ones that you don't talk about, and especially the ones that seem a little scary, how to make them a reality And so that you're doing work that fulfills you. And I'm sure if as coaches, the work is already fulfilling, but I feel like there's so much more once you connect to your self-expression, and at the same time building a tribe of raving fans. Like, we have thousands of members in our community from all over the world, so that together we can all change the world. So let me go back in time a bit. The story starts in '86, and this is me when I was 10 years old. And if you asked him, little me, what are your favorite things, it would have been movies and superheroes. And this crazy thing happened when I was 10 years old, where the school did IQ testing, and I scored really high in the test, and I was labeled as gifted. And everyone said it was a good thing, my parents, the teachers, except I started going to a different school once a week for gifted class. And when I came back to my regular school, I would be bullied. I would be bullied for being too smart. And even saying, every time I say this, it doesn't make sense. It feels weird to say. And that was my experience. So one day this happened. This is actually an artist doing an illustration of me, where I was surrounded by a bunch of kids who said, stop doing so well in your test. You're making us look bad. We're going to essentially hurt you, which is so weird. And I ran home crying to my parents, and I thought, why am I being bullied? And I had this negative association with the word gifted. I hated it because it meant it was the part of me that made me stand out, that got me in trouble. Then in high school, I discovered the X-Men comic books. And on the very first page, and I'm sure some of you have heard of X-Men or have seen some of the films or maybe even read some of the comics. On the very first page I opened of that very first book, it said Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Now there was the word gifted again, but now it meant superpower. And it was paradigm shifting for my mindset, because now the word was a positive thing. And when I discovered this, and this is hilarious, but in high school, I would say, when I grow up, I want to lead a team of superheroes. And again, I would be made fun of, but I didn't care. And in high school, I started producing dance parties. If you're in, like, for most of you who are in the Toronto area, if you've been around here for a while, they're called all ages dance parties for teens. And the way we created them was a safe space for teens to come, hang out, party, dance, and go home. There was no drugs, no alcohol. It was kind of the opposite of other stuff that was happening, because I wanted to create a safe space for my friends. And this is me on the right there. At our very first experience, we had 1,000 people show up to the first event. It was amazing. And I remember at the end of it, sitting on a crate of vinyl records like this, talking to my best friend, who was my business partner, saying, I can't believe we're doing a thing we love to do, and we're having fun, and we're making money. And I was so excited, and I was so thrilled. And I went home, I was so excited to tell my parents, and guess what they said? They said, stop dreaming. That was the phrase. And and they also said, get your head out of the clouds, right? Which I'm sure many of you have heard, something like that. And this is them. They're still completely in love. They're in their 60s. They still go on dates. They're amazing role models in a relationship as parents. But their dream for me was this. They were immigrants from Italy. I was born in Canada. And their whole thing was, be the first person to go to university, be the first person to get a diploma, degree. And that was their dream for me, but it wasn't necessarily my dream. But I went to U of T for engineering because my guidance counselors and teachers said, you're all good at math, you're good at science, you should do this. And this is what the people who are in engineering school, who want to be in engineering school, look like, because it's a challenging program. I didn't want to be there. So in the second year, I dropped out, and I became the black sheep of the family. And it caused a lot of tension, because how dare you have this opportunity and then not fulfill on the dream of the entire, not just my parents, but my aunts and uncles, and everyone was like, how can you not go to school? But I kept doing my experiences, and this is another flyer from them. And at one point we had 5,000 people a week coming to our parties, and I loved every second of it. It was fulfilling. It was magical. And yet that stop dreaming phrase kept coming up. And then I decided to actually stop doing the events. And I went back to Ryerson for marketing, thinking that would be awesome. And that's when the anxiety and the depression started. And I'm showing a photo of a subway, TTC car, because when the depression started, I would actually ride the subway for 3 hours a day and be afraid to get off. there was something wrong, and I couldn't understand what it was. And it all started when I stopped doing my experiences and when I went to school. And I'm curious if you can just type in the chat, have you ever been told to either stop dreaming or get a safe job or do something that you know you didn't want to do or you know you weren't meant to do? Just let me know in the chat. Thank you, Denise, Joy, John, and Laura, Mike. Thank you for your feedback. And then fast forward to March 2008. At the time, I was running a coaching business, and at the same time, I was also married, and everything fell apart. The marriage fell apart, and because of the anxiety around that, I completely gave up. And this is the day I sat. It was hilarious, but I sat in a Quiznos for 3 hours contemplating ending my life, and I didn't because of this face. This is my son, Michael. This is him that year. He was 3 years old, and I said, I can't do that to him. So I kept going. And in 2009, I wrote this email to my parents saying, here's my future vision for this thing called Archangel. It's part school, part angel investing, part philanthropy. I want to teach people how to run a successful business, then give them the financing and funding they need to move forward and do a lot of charitable work with it. And at the same time, I started in the real estate space. So one of my coaching clients was in real estate, and I helped her business blow up. And she said, well, why don't you stop coaching and partner with me, do all my marketing? That's what you're good at. And I did, because at the time my philosophy and thinking was I need to pay the bills, I need to make money. So I parked the Archangel idea and I went full in with real estate. We were selling pre-construction condos to investors in downtown Toronto, and I did really well. And I sold $200 million worth of condo investments. And yet secretly, I hated every second of it because it wasn't aligned with me. And I got trapped in, and it always sounds weird to say this, but I got trapped in a reputation of being successful in a specific industry where I couldn't speak to anybody about this. I couldn't say to my peers, I hate this. They would have all looked at me like I was crazy. But it allowed me to invest in personal development, like joining mastermind groups like this one's called Genius, and I work in the States, meeting people like my heroes, like Peter Diamandis, who's an amazing entrepreneur in the US and author. And this guy's name is Roger Hamilton. Roger Hamilton created a test called Wealth Dynamics. And when I took the test, it said, you are a creator. And the first line says, creators are best when their heads are in the clouds. And I'm like, head in the clouds, that sounds familiar. And then I did the Strengths Finder test, which I'm sure some of you have done before. And these are my top 5. And my number 1 is called Futuristic, where I'm all about visions of the future. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Dreaming is my gift. Dreaming is a superpower. The thing I was told to stop doing my whole childhood is the thing that makes me stand out. It's the thing that I'm really, really good at. It's the thing that I can exchange value for. And in 2014, while doing the real estate stuff, I also launched my Archangel project, which was like a side thing. It was meant to be a once a year experience where I was bringing together people like me, people who are change makers, people who aren't motivated solely by making money. It was actually more about mission and impact. And then at the same time, it wasn't a charitable thing. It was, how do we make a lot of money so we can make an even bigger difference? And this was our first event back in 2014 at a place called Berkeley Church, downtown Toronto. And I kept doing that once a year. And then in 2016, the community was building, the reputation was building, the brand, the platform, to the point where I had to quit real estate because the contrast between the two, real estate felt like I was in a really bad marriage, and Archangel felt like I met my soulmate. And I knew I had to have the courage to stop the thing that was making the money to do the thing where I was aligned, and it was the best decision ever. And that year, I went full into the Archangel project, started coaching, started a mastermind group, but the most important thing, we started an event called Archangel Summit. And it felt like I was literally getting out of jail. Like it felt like I was released. And that same year, from January to September, I lost 70 pounds. And I felt like that transformation was because of being aligned. And it felt like all of the problems were melting away, literally. And this was our first summit event. We had 1,500 people at that experience. It was at what was formerly called the Sony Center. They changed names recently. And throughout the process, I've also, through the company, through our events, have donated over $250,000 to different charities. And I want to explain how we got from 2014 to today in terms of building a global community, in terms of having success with experiences, with coaching, with all the stuff we've done. So I call it the Dream Builder formula. And the first step is to define your dream. And your dream, imagine you were literally writing an I have a dream kind of speech where you want to talk about what the change is that you want to see in the world. So if you woke up, if you weren't, let's say you were cryogenically frozen for 20 years and you were woken up 20 years from now and everything goes your way in terms of the change you want to see in the world, what is that? What is that change you want to see? And also, what do you stand for? And what do you stand against? And what do you believe, right? So this is all about what's in your heart and what's aligned for you, and what is the dream that you want to see, and what is the change that you want to see as a change maker. And one of my friends who's spoken at one of my events, his name is Naveen Jain, who's an interesting character. He's a billionaire who's the first private citizen in the US to get permission to fly to the moon. And he's building rockets to go to the moon to mine minerals, which is kind of crazy. And one of the things he said was, find something you're willing to die for and then go live for it, which I love that quote. And I've also interviewed Simon Sinek at our events, and you've probably heard this quote. It's very famous. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And one of the things that he said while I interviewed him, which I love, when someone asks him, Simon, what do you do? He answers, or he starts the answer by saying, well, I believe. That's how he answers the question, what do you do? He doesn't say, I'm a coach. He doesn't say, I'm an author. He doesn't say anything like that. He says, I believe ... And I love that framework. And what I believe is that we all have a gift or superpower, that we can all build a thriving career or business around sharing our gifts and superpowers, and that we can all do what we feel called to do rather than what people tell us to do. I also believe that change makers are modern day superheroes. We are the ones responsible for solving the world's biggest challenges. And more importantly, a tribe of aligned change makers, a community, a curated community of people who are all similar, who share the same values, the same beliefs, the same dreams, the same stand. We can actually exponentially amplify each other's superpowers by being in community. And the next step is to describe your hero. Now, hero in the context of storytelling. So if you think of a story, the hero is the main character. They are the protagonist, whether it's a story or let's say a video game or even a movie, as if you were writing a story. And in your world, for each of you, the hero is the person you want to help. So you can say that it's your client or your dream client, the person you really want to help. And the reason they're a dream client is that they also believe in what you believe and they share your values. They are aligned with you. They are a true believer in your mission. And for us, for Archangel, our dream clients are change makers. And once you have that definition, the next thing to do is to define what their journey is. So what is your dream client's ideal future? Who do they want to become? Where do they want to go? And write it as if it's their story that you're telling. And then you have to figure out what are the obstacles and challenges that prevent them from reaching their dreams. So you're all coaches. This is probably something you do. And I like to add the extra layer of the storytelling, because I think when you want to attract the right people to your work, you tell their stories. You can tell your own, which is important, but I think by sharing their transformation story, it actually, and doing it in a way that's very specific, in language that they would use, which is super important, not necessarily your own words or your jargon, because they may be repelled by that until they become part of your community. You can attract amazing, amazing clients. You also want to be able to define and have the right language of what their kryptonite is, meaning the things that are holding them back, their fears, their frustrations, all of their complaints, whatever their angst is. If you can define it in their language better than they can, that's how you can attract them. And then once you have that down, you want to define what your gift is or your superpower. So your gift, it comes in the form of a story and expertise and passion and wisdom. In your case, for all of you, it's coaching, it's expertise. It's also the unique value that you bring to the world. And the more different it is, the better. And different is better than better. The more you stand out, with telling your uniqueness and creating unique packaging for how you do your thing, the more, first of all, the more you can charge, because you're actually creating premium service for your clients. And it becomes easier for them to not only get attracted to you, but for them to refer other people because they know exactly who you are and how you can help. So in the story world, the gift is a magic potion or tool or a sword or a map. And the map part is very important. But in your world, it's a result, a transformation, and a bigger future. And I also want to share a few things I've discovered over time, that there are things about you and all of us, but about you right now, that will be a clue for what your gift is. And one of them is the things that made you stand out as a child. And in that same context, the things you may have gotten in trouble for as a child. So if you can think back to when you were young, what were you told to stop doing? And it's different for everybody. There are some common patterns, but it's different, right? So maybe you were told that you were joking around too much. Maybe you were told that you were too loud. Maybe you were told that you couldn't sit still. Whatever these things are, they become the first clue to what your unique gift is and your potential superpower. And often there's a connection between your gift and your value and your superpower and your pain and trauma from childhood. And because you were told to stop doing these things. And the things that make us stand out when we're young are the things we're told to stop doing because we're told to fit in. And it's a funny contradiction that happens for all humans, because there's the primitive part of our brain that is thousands of years or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years old, that is tribal, that says if you are not part of the tribe, and this is like 10,000 years ago, you're dead, because not being protected by your tribe meant that some animal or wild animal might get you. And that part of us wants us to fit in all the time. And then there's the prefrontal cortex, and like the conscious part of our brain, the human part of our brain, that wants us to stand out. So there's this constant fight of standing out, fitting in, standing out, fitting in. But as a child, we don't have that fight. We just stand out. We are completely self-expressed. And then all of that gets hindered. And it's like we dim our lights to make our parents happy, to make our teachers happy, our priests, whoever it is. And part of the journey into adulthood is connecting back to that self-expression, because the more of you that you can have come out, especially if you're designing a business around it, the more you will attract people who are in love with you, that are aligned with you, and that want to see you win. You also can ask what lights you up. Like, what are the topics where if someone starts talking about the thing, your face literally lights up, you can't help it. And where is your pain? Often things that are wounds when we were younger trigger or become the catalyst for greatness. It's like training. We can often have victim stories about things that has happened to us in the past. And yet maybe, and I want to invite you to think about this, maybe these things happen for you and not to you. Maybe they were a catalyst to unleash a thing that is your superpower. So as an example, I was bullied. I never fit in. I went to 5 different elementary schools. I was always the new kid. So part of that angst was having to learn how to get people to like me, how to get to make friends quickly. And because of the pain of not fitting in, my superpower got unleashed, which was bringing people together and making people feel safe and making people feel like they belong. So there's a connection. And I think for all of you, if you took some time to meditate on this and thought deeply, the thing that you care about, the things that you are passionate about today, may be connected to things that were painful in the past. And as a coach, you are not the hero of the story. Your role is to be the guide, right? Like if you've seen the movie Wizard of Oz, you are Glinda, the Good Witch. And if you've seen Lord of the Rings, you are Gandalf or Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars, right? You are the guide, and your job is to provide direction, to provide the tools, to provide the map, to help your client get from where they are to where they want to be. And once you have all of that defined, what you want to do is send out your beacon. So a beacon is like, think of a light like this, like the bat signal if you're into superheroes, or a lighthouse, a light that shines into the sky that shares you, that shares your message, that shares your stand, that shares how you can help people. And it's a way of attracting people who are aligned to you back to you, right? So you can start talking about your dream. So for a lot of entrepreneurs that I see, they talk about their thing, their expertise, or maybe the problem that they solve, or they talk a lot about their company. And what I found is if you actually talk more about you and the things you stand for, the things you care about, the change you want to create, the things that you dream about, on top of all the other things, it actually allows for the right people to be attracted to you and for the wrong people to be repelled. And for some people that's scary because it feels like, well, I'm turning away business. But if you attract the wrong people to work with, and I bet you've all had this experience, they're draining. Just because someone's paying a check or paying their invoice doesn't mean they're a dream client. Like, how many of you have had an experience with clients where they drained you, where you ended your day feeling like you had to take a nap, you were so tired, and they were either annoying or felt like they didn't appreciate you or felt like they didn't listen to you, and you're trying to help them and they're not paying attention, whatever it is, they don't respect you, right? So it's not just about someone who can pay you. You also want to find people who are aligned with you and who respect you and who appreciate you and who will do what you say, right? Someone who's a dream. And by doing this, you can seek out what I call your hero, your dream client, and then listen to their stories and then offer them your gift. So I have a really good friend. His name is Dean Jackson, and he is one of the best marketers or marketing thinkers on the planet. And one thing he told me in 2012 that changed my life was, what would change if you had to deliver a result first before ever getting paid? And that stuck with me. And that's actually how I launched my business. Our very first event in 2014, my offer was, we're doing this event. It's for this type of person. This is what we're going to be teaching and training. Here's who you're going to meet. It's $500 for the ticket. However, don't pay me upfront. Reserve a spot, show up, play full out, attend the experience. And if you think it was worth it, pay me after. And by doing so, we crushed the experience. We cared more about the results and we cared more about the delivery. And that's how we started this entire business that we've created. Now, here's a very interesting one, branding the tribe. When you think of branding in general, most people think of a logo or a corporation or a big company or a promise. And what we've discovered is you can also brand the community and give them their own structure. So imagine your dream clients were citizens of a city. What would the city be called? What would the citizens be called? And you can actually create culture, which is super important for community building, through language, through specific language. So I mentioned that to attract the right people, you have to use their language, the things that they're thinking about, the problems that they have in their words. Once they become part of your community, then you can create your language that they can use to connect with each other. So we have words and phrases in our world that only someone who's an archangel would know. And I actually say an archangel because the word, even though it's the name of our company and people know it as the name of our events, is really the name of the community. And it's really the name of a member of our community. So people will say, are you an archangel? And by doing that, by being hyper specific with understanding what it means to be a member of your community, it makes it easy for them to refer people. Because my favorite thing that happens is I'll have someone do an introduction to me and they'll say, Gio, you need to meet Lisa. Lisa's already an archangel. She doesn't even know it. And where I actually learned a lot of this from was Lady Gaga, which is this picture here. This is from a concert she did in Toronto in 2014. And please don't laugh at me, it's hilarious. But when I was doing research that year on community and tribe building, I'm also fascinated with other industries, and the music industry is one that I'm really fascinated by because ever since Napster happened, the sales of music has been in a constant decline. But there are certain artists who do really, really well, and she's one of them. And I was never really a fan, but I thought, what is it about her that's different? So I actually bought 2 tickets to that concert, and I went with a notepad and a piece of paper and a pen, and I was taking notes. I wasn't there partying. I was at a concert taking notes. And I learned so much about community from her because what she's actually done is that she doesn't go after the traditional top 40 sort of radio audience. She went after the misfits, and she went after the people who are bullied, and she went after the people who don't fit in and said, I get you. you've never fit in before. You're part of my family now, and I welcome you and I accept you. And it's fascinating. If you've ever been to one of her concerts, it feels like a giant, I don't know, like a Halloween party. Everyone's kind of dressed up. It's crazy. And yet they're not dressed up. They're there as themselves. And they're supported by each other and they feel safe. And I think that's part of community building, is to create a safe space for people to show up as themselves, to be around other people who are just like them. And that's what we've done. And that's what all of you can do. Then you're ready to start building community. And there's 3 magic numbers that I've discovered, 150, 1,000, and 100,000. So I call it the tribe, the fan, and the community. Tribe, the fans, and the community. Now, the 150 number comes from a concept called Dunbar's number. And if you've never heard of this, Robin Dunbar was an anthropologist who studied tribes, and he studied primates, and he also studied social structures. And he realized that the average human can maintain 150 meaningful contacts. After that, it becomes a challenge to maintain those kind of relationships. And this is true for deep connections, for social media friends, for even corporate culture. So when a company reaches 150 team members, after 150, culture starts to break down and you have to figure out what to do. And the idea is, if you're building community and building tribe, that's the first number you want to get to. 150 people, roughly 150 people, who have a similar through line, where at some point they feel like they're bonded by some kind of connection. And then the next step up is 1,000. And there's an amazing article or blog post that was written 10 years ago called 1,000 True Fans by a guy named Kevin Kelly. You should check it out, where he talks about how an artist, and originally it was meant for musicians, but I think any artist or any entrepreneur or any coach or practitioner can have a thriving business by not having 1 million followers, by simply having 1,000 true fans. And for those of you that have read the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, this is an amazing line for him, or from him, that we don't have instinct for cooperating on a large scale. We cooperate with millions of strangers only if we believe the same stories. So if you want to scale past the 150 to the 1,000 to the next number, it's based on storytelling, and it's based on sharing similar values. It's kind of like any religion, if you think about it, where the way a religion scales is by, they have true believers, a small group, and they have their code, they have their belief structure, they have the way, what it means to be one of us. And that kind of structure happens in all communities, whether it's a religion, a country, a society, a culture. And that's how you can scale to large levels, because you share the same stories. And one example he gives is the idea of currency, money. A piece of paper with a bunch of writing on it is simply a piece of paper with a bunch of writing on it, but we all share the same story, that it is worth $20 or worth 50 or whatever the number is. And that's how you can have large scale human cooperation. And that's, when I say 100,000 is the magic number, for those of you that, let's say you want to write a book with a traditional publisher, or want to do something on a big scale, that 100,000 is usually the minimum thing that they're looking for. So they might say, you need to have 100,000 people in an email list, 100,000 followers on social media. And that is the next big jump up for community building. So 150, 1,000, and 100,000. And one thing that I find that is super important, because people will come to me saying, you're really good at events and experiences. I want to do an event. I want to do my first event. What do you suggest? And I always say, create transformations first, and then use an event as a way of connecting your transformed clients to each other. So you start with transformation, and then people will stay forever for a community. And that's the next step, which is connecting tribe members to each other. So what you want to do is give them opportunities and reasons to connect and communicate with each other. And that's as valuable as them connecting to you as their coach. So it could be a private Facebook group, it could be meetups, outings, events. Once we all have permission to go out again, in person is amazing. And Zoom like this is also amazing, but you want to make them feel like they're family. So we've done small intimate events. This is my partner, Stephanie. This was her health clinic. We've been doing Zoom forever. We do private high level mastermind events. This one was in San Diego. This one was in Toronto. And then we have our summit event where that's thousands of people every fall that come to Toronto. And we do crazy things like have circus performers flying around and musicians, and it's a lot of fun. So those are my steps for community building, and I would love to have an interactive Q&A session with all of you. I just want to share one thing that I'm super proud of that we're working on. We've produced a feature film called Dreamer, where the intention is to inspire millions of students, especially, to dream bigger and what's possible. So some of the people that we have in our film, Richard Branson, Peter Diamandis, Lisa Nichols, Seth Godin, Jim Quick, Dean Kamen, Anusha Ansari is the first billionaire woman to fly to space. She went to the space station. Naveen Jain, who I mentioned, Craig and Mark Kielberger, who run we.org and We Day, for those of you who know that amazing charity. And that is what we're working on. It will be released this year. I'm super excited for that. So I'll make sure that you can all stay in the loop. It'll be a lot of fun, and I think you'll love what we've done. So I appreciate you allowing me to share all of this with you. And now I would be happy to do some fun Q&A.
Wow, that was amazing. Wow, wow, wow. Honestly, so many nuggets of wisdom. I took copious notes. I missed one part though, if I may ask. So
Sure.
I missed step 7. So let me go through the steps. I have a dream, number
Yep.
1. 2 is describe your hero.
Yep.
3 is hero's journey. 4 is define your gift
Mhm.
or superpower. 5 is send out your beacon. 6
Yep.
is brand the tribe. And 7, I missed 7, and 8 is connect tribe members. What is 7?
7 is build community. That's where I shared the 150,000, 100,000 numbers.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow. It was really helpful. At least to me, it was awesome. It was awesome.
you.
So, folks, put your comments in the chat box. What questions do you have for Gio? So he's somebody who knows a thing or two about building communities. He hasn't Googled community building, and he's just lived it, and he's been in the event space, community building space all his life. So I see somebody putting in a comment in the chat box. Can we please have a copy of the presentation?
Yeah,
so
sure.
we are recording this presentation. I have asked for Gio's permission to share the recording, and thank you for giving us permission, Gio. The thing is, we will send out the recording of this presentation a few days after this event. But if you want to earn CCUs, you must have attended. You should have attended you must attend live. So that's the thing. Of course, you're live here with us, but this is just for those of you for the next sessions. You will always have access to the recording of the sessions. But if you want to earn CCUs, you must attend live. Denise is saying definitely resonated with me and my life philosophy. Thank you. Lots of thank yous in the comments. Any questions for Gio? So Naila is asking, how do we start? Would pick an area of urgency or passion be the starting point?
I think I might need more context on the question with respect to starting, because my assumption is that all of you are already coaching, unless someone is starting off wondering what kind of work to do, or if it's starting off with what the mission could be or what the change is. So if you can give me a bit of context on what you want to start in terms of a category, then I can happily share some ideas there.
So Naila, are you specifically asking about starting events or starting a community? Because I know Naila personally, she has been a coach forever. I think she might be asking about building a
community. Yeah. So it starts with a handful of people, and it starts with like, if you go through this framework, being intentional on understanding who you want to serve and understanding who you are first. Right. So there's this self-discovery process that I think we all kind of avoid because it sometimes means looking inward, and that could be painful, or it may feel like it could be painful. And yet it's the most freeing process ever to figure out, what do you actually care deeply about? What are your values? And if you are working with clients and you want to actually build more community out of them, one technique I teach my coaching clients is what I call green flags. So have you ever had an experience with a client where something didn't go the way you really wanted? And you've all heard the expression a red flag, like a warning sign. And that's actually the first step to figure out what are the things you don't want. What are the behaviors or characteristics of people that you're working with that aren't aligned with you? And part of the way to figure that out is those red flags. And then once you know what the red flag is, what is the opposite? And I'll give you an example. So a thing that I don't like, and I bet I'm sure you all agree with me as a coach, is when someone that you're working with says something along the lines of, I don't need to know this, or I don't need to learn anything about this, or I don't even need coaching. And anything along those lines for me is a red flag. And the opposite is someone who says, or who believes to be a lifelong student. No matter how successful they are, no matter how old they are, or whatever it is, none of that matters. They love learning and they love to be coachable. So having the red flag allows me to understand what the green flag is. And the more green flags you can collect, then you can actually start talking about those things as your values and as the things that you look for and as the things you appreciate about the people you work with. So part of building community is allowing your community members to actually recruit for you. But you do that by telling them who a community member is. And that's by having those green flags. So for us, we look for people who aren't judging and criticizing, people who are warm, people who are loving, people who love to hug. And again, these are the things that are aligned with us. People who are lifelong students, who believe in lifelong growth, people who have a servant's heart, people who love to give. And the more you can describe your community members, the easier it is for them to recruit other people to be a part of your community. So I think the starting point is clarity around you, clarity around who you want to serve, the boundaries you want to create to say, this is us, this is who we are, and then start finding people who are like you.
I love that. It's all about clarity, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So another question, Tina is asking, can you give some examples of point 5? How in childhood being told what to stop can be what lights you up?
Well, okay. So those are two distinct things. So being told the things that made you stand out as a child will allow you to uncover what your potential gifts are and your superpowers are, because it makes you stand out. And it's different for everybody. And part of that is not only what makes you stand out then, but what is it that people count on you for now? How do people rely on you? What are the questions that keep coming up? Or what are the compliments you keep getting that you probably brush away? And here's a super important thing. For all of you, I think 100% of humans, the challenge with uncovering a gift is that it feels innate. Meaning you think it's normal. You don't think it's special. You don't think it's extraordinary because it's easy for you. As an example, for years, people said to me, you're such a good connector. And I thought, yeah, that's nice. Thank you. But we're all good connectors because I know you and you have a problem, and I know Tim and Tim has the solution, and I'm going to introduce you. And yet after the 1,000th time of someone telling me I'm a good connector, I thought maybe there's something to this. And there's this fun saying that you can't read the label of the jar you're in. So it's hard to recognize your own gifts without having external feedback. And so maybe another way to look at that for how to uncover these things is to ask people around you, what is it that they love about you? What is it that they think makes you stand out? What do they count on you for? When, and you have to even say, when do I light up? Because and lighting up means your face. So imagine, Shahab starts talking about the X-Men to me, I'm going to be like super excited, but I can't tell that I'm super excited necessarily, but you can, right? So the idea is asking the people around you to keep track of things that happen that light you up. So hopefully that helps. And thank you, Kathleen and Pat and for all these awesome comments.
Lots of engagement in the chat box. People are loving what you're sharing, Gio. So next question is tons of questions, guys. So I try to be mindful of times. We still have time. I'm going to take a few more questions and ask Gio. So I think it's Cindy. She's asking, this was amazing. Wow. How do you build multiple communities? Or do you rather build multiple experiences once you've reached the 100K number within community, and for how long?
Awesome question. I believe in ecosystem. So, and I also believe in efficiency. So if you're wanting to build multiple and distinct communities, that's going to drain you, because you have to shift your energies to different people. And the only way to really do that is with a lot of structure. So building a big team, maybe even having partners and different things like that. But what we've done as we've grown, we still focus on one core hero, like one dream client, which is a change maker, meaning an entrepreneur that wants to change the world. However, now that we have a giant community, we've actually created, what we've done is thought about the path and the journey that someone takes from the moment they dream of being an entrepreneur to having $100 million business, and shaping it into 4 main buckets. But it's one long path. And what we've done is created 4 different programs based on where people are at. So for anyone between, let's say, $0 and 100,000 in revenue, we have a program called Academy, which is more for startups, and it teaches more of the things you need to know at that place, where you're answering things like, what is my business model? How do I define my dream client? And a lot of questions like that. And then the second bucket is from 100,000 to $1 million in revenue. And we call those people artists, because they are established, they get a lot of referrals, they have success stories, and now they're trapped because they've run out of time. They have capacity issues, and they need to start building structures, teams, systems, process, marketing automation, all those kind of things. And for them, we have a program called MBA, which is is a coaching program that I run. And then if you're over $1 million, so from 1 to 10 million, we have a mastermind group called Masters, and they don't care about the coaching as much. They care about each other and connection, and they care about who. So the questions they'll ask me is, who do you know that can do X, Y, and Z? Because I want to offload that. And then over 10 million, we have our council group, which is another, it's like a board of directors mastermind that I've created. And for them, a lot of it is like, they're already on a rocket ship taking off. They want to scale, but the conversation is different. So what we've done is we have one giant community, and then we have smaller communities within, like, sub tribes within the large tribe, so that people are still around people like them at a similar spot on the journey, and we serve them in different ways. And that way I can still do all this, and it's efficient.
I love that. It's kind of the same hero going through one journey, but at different stages, right?
Right. Yeah. And the one other thing is, wherever they're at, they know what to look forward to. Right. So part of the aspiration, if you're in the MBA group, is to join the master's group. Like, I want to get to $1 million in revenue so that I could be a part of that group. And then when we do our large event, it's like a giant family reunion for everybody.
I love that. Lots of great comments for you, showing appreciation for your presentation. Next question is from Alicia. She's asking, do you think you need to use a coach to get to that self-awareness, even if you're a coach?
I think all coaches should have coaches. I think for all of us, we need to lead by example. So part of my philosophy is, if you want to be an amazing teacher, you have to be an amazing student. And if you want to be an amazing coach, you have to work with amazing coaches. Because how are you, and this is my own philosophy, but I'm hoping you agree with me, how can you take a stand or recommend coaching as a principle, as a thing for your clients, and then not have a coach? So that's been my philosophy. And I have multiple coaches for different things, but I think it's super important to, and again, these are my values and this is what I'm aligned with, but I'm a lifelong student and I want to constantly grow. So for me to have that happen, I need coaches.
That's so true. Mia is asking, what has your son told you is his superpower, and how best will you support him to go for it and live his dream?
So he is a math genius. He's also a coding genius. He loves coding. So my partner and I, Stephanie, we we want the kids, we have three boys, we want them to be well-rounded. However, because he's fascinated with coding and gaming, and he started like he's 15 now, he started a YouTube channel when he was 10, and I actually helped him do that. And I actually bought him video equipment so that he can record himself, and I bought him video editing equipment because that's where his passions lied. And I also want to have him exposed to a bunch of different things, so because exposure is super important for all of us to figure out these things. But that's been his passion. And then so for summer camps, although this year we have to figure something out, but in the past, part of the summer camp was sports camps and outdoor activity camps. And then in Toronto, there's a place called Hatch, which is amazing. So Hatch is a coding school that teaches kids how to code, and they also have summer camps. So we're doing whatever we can to support his dream around coding and gaming, while at the same time making sure that there's a lot of activity and movement and healthy things. So it's not just 12 hours in front of a screen.
I love that. Thanks for your answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I think it's Anne Rose. Yes, she's asking, what other tools can you offer that help to hone in on our contribution?
Oh boy, there's so much. I think maybe more of a philosophy than a tool, but I was watching, how many of you have seen the Michael Jordan, I think it's called Last Dance series on Netflix? And I'm not a fan of watching too much television, but I love things like that show people who are extraordinary, and it shows how they think. And one thing that I really appreciate from the professional sports world is the idea of performance versus training. So let me explain what I mean. Let's say a hockey player, since this is Toronto. A typical NHL Toronto Maple Leaf type player spends, I think it's 20 to 25 minutes on the ice for a game. And then they spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours training during the week. It's like prep. It's like strengthening their skill sets for that 20 minutes of performance time. Now, in our world, as let's say you're a coach or a thought leader or a practitioner, how much time do you spend practicing your craft versus actually doing the thing? And I don't mean like reading a book about it. You can't read a book to play basketball. You have to actually train. But I think part of the mastery is thinking like a craft person, like someone, if you've ever watched the documentaries about sushi, people in the sushi world from Japan, they spend decades with a mentor, with a master, as an apprentice until they figure it out, right? So part of what I think is important is on the training of your thing, not just the doing of your thing. And other tools. I think, well, actually, let me recommend an amazing book, and it just came out yesterday. And it's from a friend of mine. His name is Benjamin Hardy. The book is called Personality Isn't Permanent. It is literally one of the best books I've ever read. It showed up yesterday. I couldn't put it down. I finished the whole book in a day. And it actually talks about uncovering at the core who you are, but then realizing you can actually change who you are. And he has science around the fact that a lot of the things we thought about when it comes to personality aren't true. Like the idea of, for any of you who have ever said, this is just who I am, this is how I act, this is how I behave, that's all only true in the present, but you can actually change who you are. You can change your personality, and it's based on identifying who your future self is and who you aspire to become, and then train to get to that place. I highly recommend this book if you can go and buy it. It's amazing.
Thank you so much for that, Gio. So a couple of more questions before we let Gio go. So Pat is asking, how do the different generations take to this coach approach in your community? Have you ever worked with seniors with this philosophy, or know anyone who works the approach with this generation?
Well, I think we have seniors in our community. We have a woman who's in her 80s who is amazing. Comes to all of our events. So it's less about demographic. It's more about the through line of the characteristics of the people, and the alignment of values, and someone who wants to create change. So I think there are nuances with everything, with age, with cultures, with different people, and part of it is understanding and having empathy for where people are at in their journey. And like even in the real estate days, I worked with a lot of different people from different countries, because a lot of people who value real estate investing come from either China or India, Iran, Italy, right? So understanding and having empathy for their culture and how they do things is super important. But I think all humans crave connection. I don't care how old you are. It's why I think when you have a thriving seniors community, like a seniors home, it's better than them being alone in their own place, even though a lot of seniors are afraid of change, and that happens with age. But I think allowing for connection to happen actually is healthy. Like there's actually science around the health of connection and community, and that isolation is actually deadly. And that's why everything that's happening over the past 4 months, I think, yes, we're potentially being protected from COVID, but there are other side effects to not having human to human connection that is super important. So if your primary client base are people who are seniors, I think they will still value being connected to other people like them. And maybe it's around storytelling, and maybe it's around some kind of bond. But I can promise that isolation and loneliness are deadly. And if you can help people through connection, you become a hero to them. Like for all of us, how many of you, all of you, have ever felt like you didn't fit in, or you almost felt like an alien at some point, or you felt like you didn't belong, or other people don't get you? Maybe in your world, you're a coach and your family is all lawyers. I'm just making this up, but where they don't understand you, they don't understand your philosophy, and they don't understand where you're coming from. And then you finally find a group like this, right? And part of the magic of what ICF is that not only is it about training and education, it's community. It's about being around people just like you, who get you and understand you and have empathy for you. And that is magical no matter what the group is. So I think you all have the opportunity to create this for people, whether they're seniors or anybody.
I love that. That's so true. So a few of you have asked about the name of the author. It's Benjamin Hardy.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to be mindful of time. Just very briefly, one last question. Alicia is asking, what is the most important lesson you learned along the way that will help those of us at the beginning of our journey?
Wow. Most important lesson I've learned. Such an interesting philosophy. I have learned a lot of important lessons. I think besides everything I've already shared, something that is super important is around empathy and around understanding. Like, what does every human want? We all want to be heard. We all want to be appreciated. We all want to be respected. We all want to know that we matter. We all want our voices to be heard. And doing things that show people you care. Like, I think caring is a superpower, especially as an entrepreneur or as a coach. And doing things that go above and beyond to prove to people that you care is game changing. Like, I think this one thing could be one of the most important things we do, because I'm actually known as a marketing expert. And here's my philosophy around marketing. And it's crazy because this is not what's taught out there. But I believe that marketing happens after the sale and not before the sale, which you might be like, what are you talking about? But I believe that creating a remarkable delivery of your thing is more important than lead generation and funnels and Facebook ads. I believe that if you deepen relationship with people that are already working with you and creating remarkability in how you help them, they become your marketing force. They become your sales force. They become your recruiters, your referrers. They can't wait to tell people about you. And it's how we've built everything we've done. I don't spend money on Facebook ads, and we have a multi-million-dollar business. I don't do a lot of the things that other people talk about. What I do is show people that I give a shit, and excuse my language, but I care. And then we create experiences that are different and remarkable. They stand out. And that's because I'm infusing me into all the things I'm doing, right? So we have a business conference, I'll use that in quotations, and yet why do we have musicians and circus performers and the most amazing light show and surprise and all kinds of fun stuff happening? Because I want to create something that people want to talk about. And that way I can't be compared to other things. There are thousands of events. There are thousands of conferences. There are thousands of everything. There's only one of us. So I think focusing on going the extra mile, because I love the saying, the extra mile is never crowded, with the people that already care about you, and then building community that way and building your client base and everything you do by focusing on the delivery and not necessarily on the marketing or like the advertising.
Lots of great stuff. Gio, I'm truly thankful for the time and lots of awesome insights that you shared with us. I've been a member of your community for quite a while now, and I always find value in your wisdom and your insights. Lots of great comments in the chat box. Patrick is saying, thank you for providing the model for growth and success. Marilyn says, thank you very much, Giovanni. Your sincerity shines through. Wishing you continued success and impact as you use your superpowers to create a better world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Giovanni. Show some appreciation for Gio in the chat box, folks. If you found any value. So Gio, where do people reach you? Where do people find you? If they want more, how can they connect with you?
I just shared my Instagram link in the chat. Please follow me there and reach out there and send me a DM, and I'd be happy to continue the conversation. That's my reach directly out to me. Don't go through all the usual corporate company stuff. Just find me.
Appreciate your time, your generosity, and your wisdom. Thank you so much, Gio. Any departing thoughts before you go?
I hope I've planted the seed that you are all superheroes, like real life. I'm not talking about wearing tights and dressing up in masks. I literally mean people that can change the world, because I believe in all of you. And if you feel that resonates for you, for sure, reach out to me, because you're the kind of person I want to help.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Gio. I'm going to let you go if you would like to. So again, I appreciate your time. So folks, what was the main key takeaway for you guys? So what was the number one thing that you learned from Gio's presentation? Just share it in the chat box. Just one thing that resonated with you, that made a light bulb go off in your head. What was the number one thing for you guys? So Ruth is saying, follow your passion. Denise is saying, courage. Diane is saying green flags, right? Alicia says, who do I aspire to be and train to get there? Lots of comments in the chat box. The extra mile. He believes in himself. Be yourself and find your own path. Again, green flags. Building community of similar-minded people. Follow your heart. Find what lights you up and find your heroes' clients. Take the time to do the self-discovery. All of them are so true. And for me, I ditto all of that. And for me, maybe one thing that really resonated with me is something that I truly believe in myself. It is, what makes you unique makes you valuable. What makes you unique makes you successful. And we should embrace who we are, and the part of us that we stand out, where we stand out, that could be our true gift to the world, right? Awesome, awesome stuff. I love that personally. I hope you enjoyed Gio's presentation just like I did. Now we get to the final part of today's meeting, which is the networking part. And